Strategic planning is the systematic process through which organizations define their future direction, establish priorities, allocate resources, and develop action plans to achieve long-term objectives. Within the strategic management framework, strategic planning translates strategic thinking into practical organizational action. While strategic thinking focuses on vision, innovation, and opportunity recognition, strategic planning provides the roadmap that guides execution. The global MBA curriculum identifies strategic planning as one of the fundamental competencies required for strategic analysis, strategy formulation, and strategic execution. Executives must understand how to move from broad organizational aspirations to measurable strategic objectives and actionable initiatives. Leading MBA programs emphasize strategic planning as a structured management process that integrates environmental analysis, goal setting, strategy formulation, implementation, and performance control. Similarly, modern business highlights decision-making, adaptability, and organizational alignment as essential elements of strategic planning in modern business environments. In today's volatile and uncertain global economy, strategic planning is no longer an annual administrative exercise. It has become a continuous capability that enables organizations to anticipate changes, respond to disruption, and sustain competitive advantage. 2. Definition of strategic planning. Strategic planning is a formal process through which an organization determines its future direction, long-term objective, strategic priorities, resource allocation, decisions, implementation mechanisms. The purpose of strategic planning is to align organizational activities with strategic goals while ensuring that resources are used effectively to create value. Strategic planning differs from operational planning. Strategic planning. Operational planning. Long-term focus. Short-term focus. Enterprise-wide scope. Departmental scope. Competitive advantage. Efficiency improvement. Executive responsibility. Managerial responsibility. Future-oriented. Present-oriented. A well-designed strategic plan answers 5 critical questions. 1. Who are we? 2. Where are we now? 3. Where do we want to go? 4. How will we get there? 5. How will we know if we are successful? 3. Importance of strategic planning. Organizations engage in strategic planning for several reasons. Direction and purpose. Strategic planning provides a clear organizational direction and establishes priorities for decision-making. Resource allocation. Organizations have limited financial, human, and technological resources. Strategic planning helps allocate resources toward high-priority initiatives. Competitive advantage. Effective planning allows organizations to identify opportunities and develop unique competitive positions. Risk management. Strategic planning helps organizations anticipate threats and prepare responses before crises emerge. Organizational alignment. Strategic planning ensures that departments, employees, and stakeholders work toward common objectives. Performance improvement. Research consistently shows that organizations with disciplined strategic planning processes outperform organizations that rely solely on reactive decision-making. Example: Amazon's long-term strategic planning enabled the company to move beyond e-commerce into cloud computing, artificial intelligence, logistics, and digital entertainment. These initiatives were the result of deliberate strategic planning rather than isolated operational decisions. 4. The strategic planning process framework. Most organizations follow a structured strategic planning process consisting of 6 major stages. Stage 1. Establish vision, mission, and values. The planning process begins by defining organizational identity and purpose. Vision. The vision describes the desired future state of the organization. Example: to be the world's most customer-centric company. Mission. The mission explains why the organization exists. Example: to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Core values. Values define the principles that guide organizational behavior. Examples include integrity, innovation, customer focus, excellence, sustainability. Vision, mission, and values provide the foundation for all subsequent strategic decisions. Stage 2. Environmental analysis. Organizations must understand both external and internal environments before developing strategy. External analysis. Managers evaluate Economic conditions, industry trends, technological developments, regulatory changes, social shifts, competitive dynamics. Common tools include Pestel analysis, examines, political, economic, social, technological, environmental, legal factors. Porter's 5 forces, evaluates, industry, rivalry, buyer, power, supplier, power, threat of substitutes, threat of new entrants. Example: Netflix recognized the increasing availability of broadband internet and changing consumer preferences, leading to its strategic shift from DVD rentals to streaming services. Stage 3. Internal analysis. Internal analysis evaluates organizational capabilities and resources. Managers assess resources, financial resources, human resources, technology, intellectual property. Capabilities: innovation, capability, operational efficiency, marketing, expertise, brand strength. Core competencies: unique strengths that competitors cannot easily imitate. SWOT analysis combines internal and external analysis. Internal, external, strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, threats. Example: Apple's ecosystem integration represents a core competency that contributes significantly to competitive advantage. Stage 4. Strategic goal setting. After completing environmental analysis, organizations establish strategic objectives. Effective strategic objectives should be SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Examples: increase market share from 15% to 20% within 3 years. Expand into 5 new international markets by 2030, achieve carbon neutrality by 2035. Strategic objectives convert organizational aspirations into measurable targets.
Stage 5. Strategy formulation. Strategy formulation involves identifying and selecting strategic alternatives. Organizations typically evaluate several options. Growth strategies, market penetration, market development, product development, diversification. Competitive strategies. According to Michael Porter: 1. Cost leadership. 2. Differentiation. 3. Focus strategy. Corporate strategies. Mergers and acquisitions, strategic alliances, vertical integration, international expansion. Strategic alternatives are assessed based on financial feasibility, strategic fit, risk profile, resource requirements, expected returns. Example: Tesla adopted a differentiation strategy focused on innovation, technology leadership, and sustainability rather than competing primarily on price. Stage 6. Strategy implementation. Even the best strategy creates little value if implementation fails. Implementation requires organizational structure, ensuring the organization is structured to support strategic objectives. Resource allocation, deploying capital, talent, and technology towards strategic priorities. Leadership, leaders communicate strategic direction and motivate employees. Organizational culture, culture must reinforce desired strategic behaviors. Change management, organizations often need to modify processes, systems, and behaviors to support strategic initiatives. Research suggests that implementation failures account for a significant proportion of unsuccessful strategic initiatives. 5. Strategic control and performance measurement. Strategic planning is incomplete without ongoing evaluation. Organizations monitor progress through key performance indicators, KPIs. Examples: revenue growth, market share, customer retention, employee engagement, return on investment, ROI. Balanced scorecard framework measures performance across 4 dimensions. 1. Financial perspective. 2. Customer perspective. 3. Internal process perspective. 4. Learning and growth perspective. The balanced scorecard helps organizations evaluate strategy execution beyond purely financial metrics. 6. Strategic planning in dynamic environments. Traditional strategic planning assumed relatively stable environments. Today's environment requires strategic agility, ability to adapt rapidly to change. Scenario planning, Preparing for multiple possible futures. Continuous monitoring. Regular reassessment of strategic assumptions. Strategic renewal. Updating strategy when market conditions change. Example. During the COVID-19 pandemic, organizations that rapidly adjusted business models, supply chains, and digital capabilities demonstrated strategic agility and resilience. 7. Common strategic planning failures. Organizations often encounter planning challenges. Lack of leadership commitment. Senior leaders fail to support implementation. Unrealistic objectives. Goals exceed available resources. Poor environmental analysis. Incorrect assumptions lead to flawed strategies. Weak communication. Employees do not understand strategic priorities. Failure to adapt. Organizations continue pursuing outdated strategies despite environmental changes. Effective strategic planning requires continuous learning and adjustment. 8. Strategic planning and executive leadership. One of the most important responsibilities of executives is leading the strategic planning process. Successful strategic leaders think long-term, anticipate change, make difficult resource allocation decisions, align stakeholders, balance risk and opportunity, foster strategic adaptability. The global MBA program emphasizes that strategic planning is not solely a technical process but also a leadership responsibility requiring vision, judgment, communication, and execution capability. Key takeaways. 1. Strategic planning translates strategic vision into actionable organizational plans. 2. The process begins with vision, mission, and values. 3. Environmental and internal analyses provide the foundation for strategic decision-making. 4. Strategic objectives should be SMART and aligned with organizational purpose. 5. Strategy formulation involves selecting competitive and growth strategies. 6. Effective implementation requires leadership, resources, structure, and culture. 7. Strategic control systems monitor execution and performance. 8. Modern organizations require strategic agility and continuous adaptation. 9. Many strategic failures occur during implementation rather than formulation. 10. Strategic planning is a core executive competency that links analysis, decision-making, and organizational performance.